Welcome to Lesson 24 in the Music Basics series. And in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to play hymns. We're going to take a few popular hymns that I have found in some of the different hymnals that I have in my collection. And if you look at some of the more modern hymnals, some of the more recently published ones, you'll find that not only do they have the notes for soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, they also have guitar chords. And the neat thing about guitar chords is that they're also keyboard chords. And so using the methods that you've learned in this series, you'll be able to just block out the stuff you don't need, look for what you do want, and be able to play these hymns. So I'll show you a couple of different ways to play each of these, depending on whether you're going to play them as a soloist or if you're going to accompany singers, and maybe someday play them in church for the congregation. So let's put up some sheet music here, and I'll show you how this is going to work. Let's start with this well-known hymn, Jesus Loves Me, This I Know. Now, you'll notice that the notes are all written out for you there on the treble and the bass clef. So on the treble clef, you've got the soprano and alto lines, and on the bass clef, you've got the tenor and bass lines. Well, we're not going to worry about the bass clef. We're only going to pay attention to the treble clef, and on the treble clef, we're only going to pay attention to the melody. But before we get to the melody, let's start with the chords. Now, you'll notice the chords are written for you above the melody, and these are very familiar chords. In fact, if you look at the whole song, you'll find that we only have our three basic chords that we learned way back at the beginning of the Music Basics series. We're starting here with the C major chord, and then another chord that we have to play is G major, but to make it easier, we're going to play it this way, in first inversion. First inversion, you remember, is we take the chord in root position, we take the root, move it up here on top, first inversion. And then we also have our F major chord, but instead of playing it like this, we're going to play it in second inversion. So you remember that second inversion, we're taking this F, putting it up here, and then we're taking this A and putting it up here. The root ends up in the middle of the chord, but it's still the same three notes, and it's still F major, but it's now in second inversion. So it's going to go from C to G, back to C, and then an F. Then you see this F over C, and what that really means is that you're playing an F major chord, and C is in the bass. Well, it just so happens that's also F second inversion, so it works out very nicely. And then you'll notice at the end of the second line, you have C over G. We're not going to worry about that one. We're just going to play C. And the G is actually down here, so it sounds like this. But we're just going to play C, and that'll work just fine. Now, as we play through the chords, you're going to notice that the chord changes sometimes on beat 4, and sometimes on beat 2, and sometimes on beat 3. So we have to be very careful now. What we're going to do is we're going to play the chord every 2 beats. So it'll sound something like this. We'll play through the chords together. And I'm just going to play the first 2 lines of the song for now. So as we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It changes on every beat here. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Everybody knows the tune, or at least most people do. We're only paying attention to the top note. And actually, this tune is so well known, you could probably just pick it out by ear. Now, let's put the chords and the melody together. Remember now, we're going to play the chord on every other beat, beats 1 and 3, except when it changes quickly. You just follow along. Now you'll notice that that second to the last chord is actually G7. So if you want, you can play it like this, where I've got all 4 notes and it's in first inversion. Or you can, if your fingers are having a hard time reaching all those notes, just leave out the D. And that works out okay because the melody will fill it in for you. So it'll sound perfectly fine. Whatever works best for you. So that's how you would play it if you were playing it as a solo piece. Now, if you were accompanying a singer, you would play the chords in your right hand and just play the bass note in your left. So notice now I'm playing the C major chord in my right hand. And so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're playing the G once again in first inversion. It's basically the same thing, except now you're doing it with slightly different fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say somebody is singing it, and it's going to have to be me because I'm sitting right here. You'll have to excuse the fact that I'm really not much of a singer, because mainly I accompany singers. So let's put in the left hand first before I attempt to sing this. So you can see I have to move my left hand following the bass part. Come back to the F. One, 2, 3, 4. You may have to play through that a few times to get it. You'll notice I'm only playing 3 different notes in my left hand. I'm playing the C and a G and also the F. So here's how it would sound if somebody were singing this and you were doing this accompaniment. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong, they are weak, but he is strong. Let's take a look at one more song. This is actually another hymn, but this one is written out in a simple chord chart form. So there are actually no notes to read. So it is assumed when you look at a chart like this that you already know the tune. I'm just playing the first 4 lines. So if you know this tune, then you're already halfway there. Now we've got to add the chords. Now, notice once again, we have D major is now our starting chord. So now you've got to get used to playing in a different key. And this is the main reason that I taught you all the basic chords, not just C major and not just F major or whatever, but every chord that you could possibly play, all the basic chords. So now you already know this is D major. Notice you're going to go from D to A to D. And so the easiest way to do that is to play D in root position and play A in first inversion. This is very much like we did when we were playing Jesus Loves Me. We're using inversions to make the chords easier to play. So when you go to G, you can play it in second inversion, then back to D, and then back to A. You'll notice then you got A7. Once again, if that's too many notes for your hands to handle, you can just play this, leave out the E. Because as it turns out, the melody will be filling it in for you. Interesting how that works out sometimes. Now here's a different chord coming up. This is F sharp 7. So you know that F sharp sounds like this. F sharp 7 would sound like this. Now we can take this F sharp 7. Let's just start with F sharp. We're going to play it in second inversion. Notice how easily now you can go from D to F sharp. We can also add the E in there. However, if that's once again too much for your fingers at this point, just play F sharp. Just play the 3 black keys. And then it's going to go to B minor, another chord that you know but have not used in a song yet, perhaps. It would be up here or down here if you play it in root position. However, let's play it in first inversion. Now, notice how easily you can go from F sharp to B minor. This note doesn't even have to move. And then to get to G, you only have to move one note. So those 4 chords together would sound like this. And then you've got in the 4th line, D, A, D. So once again, we're going to start out by playing a chord on every first measure. And this time, you're going to have to kind of figure it out from where the melody starts. So if you're counting, you know that that's most likely going to be beat 1. These first 2 notes are, and you're aware of this concept, pickup notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And so if we add the chords, you may have to just work on this a line at a time, and that's okay. And then the next line, here comes that F sharp. So this will be a little bit more of a challenge for a couple of reasons. First of all, you're playing in a key that you've never played in before. Also, you're using a couple of chords that you haven't yet used in a song, at least as far as I know. You've got to get that F sharp in there, or F sharp 7, and then the B minor to the G. Now, I trust that you will work through the rest of this. The sheet music will be available to you in the PDF that goes along with this video, and you can work through it and play the whole song. So, there is an introduction on playing hymns and worship songs. And the goal for this would be you could play a hymn for your family, maybe even play it for your church, or you could accompany a singer who is singing the song. And it doesn't have to be anything very complex when you play. You can just play the chords because the singer will take care of the melody. All right. Thanks for sticking with me. I encourage you to go back over this video and continue to work with it until it becomes second nature.